Now, Hollywood actor Johnny Depp was recently spotted at a high-end fine dining restaurant.
Johnny Depp has always been known for his charm and generosity. But what happened one ordinary afternoon left everyone speechless. While running errands, he noticed a disabled woman struggling with her groceries and didn't hesitate to lend a hand. To her, it was an act of kindness she'd never forget. But little did Depp know, this small gesture would set off a chain of events so extraordinary, it would forever alter his life. The next day, shocking news arrived, leaving even Johnny stunned. What really happened? Let's dive in. The unexpected grocery run. The late afternoon sun bathed the bustling streets of Los Angeles in a warm glow, casting long shadows across the crowded parking lot of a local grocery store. Among the usual throng of shoppers, a familiar figure emerged, Johnny Depp, his signature hat and scarf barely concealing his identity. He had just returned from a quiet lunch at a small cafe nearby, seeking solace after a hectic week of meetings. Despite his intent to keep things low-key, whispers and sideways glances followed him as he made his way toward the entrance. "Is that really him?" a young woman murmured to her friend. "I think it is," her companion replied, pulling out her phone for a quick photo. Johnny was no stranger to the buzz that came with fame, but today he was focused on a simpler mission, grabbing a few essentials for himself. As he neared the automatic doors, a sight stopped him in his tracks. An elderly woman in a motorized wheelchair was struggling to balance several overstuffed grocery bags while maneuvering through the door. The bags teetered precariously, and one had already spilled its contents, apples rolling across the pavement. The woman leaned forward, trying to gather them, but the effort left her visibly strained. Without hesitation, Johnny strode over. "Let me help you with those," he said gently, his voice tinged with concern. The woman looked up, startled, her bright blue eyes meeting his. Recognition dawned immediately. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed. You're Johnny Depp. I can't believe this." Johnny offered a warm smile, crouching to retrieve the apples. "Yes, ma'am, that's me. But today, I'm just here to lend a hand. Where's your car?" The woman chuckled softly, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "I live just down the road at the senior apartments. Usually my neighbor helps me, but she's out today, and I thought I could manage on my own." Her tone carried a mix of determination and frustration. "Well, today you've got me," Johnny said, scooping up the spilled apples and grabbing the rest of her bags. "Lead the way." As they walked, Johnny carrying the groceries and carefully steering her wheelchair, the two struck up an easy conversation. The woman introduced herself as Eleanor Gray. She had been living alone since her husband passed away 5 years earlier, and while the accident that left her bound to a wheelchair had been a challenge, she prided herself on her independence. "My husband used to love your movies," Eleanor shared, her voice wistful. "We'd watch Pirates of the Caribbean together every Friday night. He always said you reminded him of himself as free-spirited, a little rebellious." Johnny laughed softly. "He sounds like my kind of guy. What was his name?" "Harold," she replied, her eyes brightening. "He was a painter. Brilliant, really. Our home was always filled with his art." "Sounds like you two made quite the team," Johnny said, touched by her words. As they continued, Eleanor spoke of her love for literature and the small art workshops she hosted for neighborhood kids in her apartment. Johnny listened intently, finding himself drawn to her warmth and resilience. "Your kindness today reminds me of Harold," she said after a moment. "He always believed in helping others, no matter how small the gesture." Johnny glanced down at her, struck by the sincerity in her voice. It reminded him of his own upbringing, where his mother had taught him to never forget his roots and always pay kindness forward. When they reached Eleanor's apartment, she insisted on inviting Johnny in for tea. Her home was modest but brimming with character. The walls were adorned with Harold's vibrant paintings, each one telling a story of love, loss, and beauty. On a small table by the window, an easel held her latest project, a portrait of a child, her face lit with wonder. "You're quite the artist yourself," Johnny remarked, admiring the work. Eleanor smiled, her cheeks coloring slightly. "Oh, I dabble. Harold was the real talent. but I like to keep his spirit alive through these little projects. As Johnny helped put away her groceries, Eleanor began sharing an idea she had been nurturing. Her late husband had left behind a dream: to start an initiative that combined art therapy and community outreach, especially for people facing physical or emotional challenges. "It's been difficult to get off the ground," she admitted, showing Johnny a folder filled with sketches and plans Harold had left behind. "But I believe in it. Art has such power to heal. I see it every day with the kids I teach." Johnny flipped through the folder, his interest growing with each page. The designs were simple yet profound: mobile art studios, workshops tailored for individuals with disabilities, and community exhibitions. "This is incredible," he said earnestly. Eleanor shrugged modestly. "It's just an idea. One Harold never got the chance to bring to life." A call from Anna Gray. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Johnny Depp's study as he sat with a mug of black coffee, flipping absent-mindedly through a script. His mind, however, wasn't on the words in front of him. Instead, it kept wandering back to the previous day and his unexpected encounter with Eleanor Gray. Her strength, warmth, and the unfinished dream of her late husband had left a deep impression. Just as he was about to set the script aside, his phone buzzed. The screen displayed an unfamiliar number. Normally, he would let it go to voicemail, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Depp?" A professional, confident voice greeted him. "This is Anna Gray, Eleanor Gray's daughter. I believe you helped my mother with her groceries yesterday?" Johnny smiled at the memory. "Yes, ma'am, I did. Is she all right?" There was a soft laugh on the other end. "Oh, she's more than all right. She hasn't stopped talking about it. In fact, she's officially renamed you her pirate delivery service." Johnny chuckled. "She's a remarkable woman. It was the least I could do." Anna's tone grew more serious. "That's actually why I'm calling. My mother mentioned you talked about my father's vision for art therapy and community outreach. She said you seemed genuinely interested." "I was," Johnny replied, sitting up straighter. "What your father dreamed of, using art to help people heal, is extraordinary. It's something the world could use more of." Anna paused, then continued, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of vulnerability. "I believe it too. I've been nurturing this idea for years, but it's not easy. Resources, logistics, reaching the right people, it's overwhelming. My mother said you're someone who values making a difference. Would you consider a partnership? I have ideas for how we could bring this dream to life." Johnny leaned back, considering her words. The fire in her gaze was unmistakable, and for a moment, he saw the outlines of something bigger than himself. A challenge, a purpose. "I'm listening," he said, leaning forward. The next morning, Johnny walked into a studio on the outskirts of downtown Los Angeles. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, streaking the concrete floor in golden beams. The space smelled faintly of paint and sawdust, a place where dreams were shaped by hand. For a moment, he stood still, taking it all in. Anna was waiting near a half-finished mural, her hands dusted with pastel hues. She turned, her face lighting up. "Welcome to the start of something big." Anna greeted Johnny at the door with a warm smile and led him inside. The studio was small but vibrant, alive with energy. Easels stood in rows, holding half-finished paintings, while tables scattered with clay sculptures and tools hinted at ongoing projects. Shelves overflowed with colorful supplies, the space buzzing with creative potential. "This is where I've been experimenting with my father's vision," Anna explained. "We host small workshops here. Kids from underserved neighborhoods, adults recovering from trauma, even seniors like my mom. Art has this incredible ability to bridge gaps and bring healing. We've seen it time and again." Johnny examined a series of paintings hung along one wall. They varied from simple childlike drawings to intricate works bursting with emotion. "These are stunning," he said. "They are," Anna agreed. "Each piece tells a story. That's what makes this work so powerful. But to scale it up, to reach more people, we need something bigger. A foundation." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about a name, the Harold Gray Foundation. It would honor my father's legacy and focus on providing art therapy and accessible creative spaces to communities that need it most." Johnny felt a surge of excitement at her words. It's a brilliant idea, and you're right, this needs to grow. The world could use more spaces like this, places that prioritize connection and healing. As Anna guided him through the rest of the studio, she explained her vision in more detail. It's not just about art, she said, gesturing to a small group of teenagers working together on a mural. It's about giving people a voice, a way to express what they can't always put into words. It's about building a community where everyone feels seen and valued. Johnny watched as one of the teens stepped back to admire their work, a look of pride lighting up their face. It reminded him of something Eleanor had said the day before, that art had the power to heal wounds both seen and unseen. This is exactly the kind of thing I want to support, Johnny said finally. But it's going to take more than funding. We'll need partnerships, a clear strategy, and a lot of passionate people to make it happen. Anna nodded. I've been working on a proposal. I can send it to you tonight, and we can discuss it further. I'd like that, Johnny said, already envisioning the possibilities. As Johnny left the studio later that day, his mind buzzed with ideas. The Harold Gray Foundation had the potential to be something extraordinary, a way to honor Harold's dream, elevate Eleanor's efforts, and create a legacy of impact far beyond what any of them could imagine. But this was just the beginning. There were plans to make, partnerships to build, and countless lives to touch. For the first time in years, Johnny felt a renewed sense of purpose, as though everything in his life had led him to this moment. He couldn't wait to see where the journey would take him, and Eleanor's family. The great decision. The next morning, Johnny Depp sat in his study, reflecting on the unexpected turn his week had taken. Helping Eleanor Gray with her groceries had seemed like a simple gesture, but it had opened the door to something extraordinary. The idea of the Harold Gray Foundation, a vision born from Eleanor's late husband's dream, stirred something deep within him. When Anna called to follow up, her voice carried both excitement and nervousness. So, Mr. Depp, have you had time to think about our conversation? Johnny leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful smile on his face. I have, Anna, and I'm in. The pause on the other end spoke volumes, her anticipation palpable. Really? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. But, Johnny continued, on one condition. We create a program specifically for underserved communities, offering free or reduced cost access to art therapy and creative spaces. And we name it the Harold Gray Initiative. It's only fitting to honor the man whose dream inspired all of this. Anna's breath hitched, her voice thick with emotion. That would mean everything to my mother, and to me. Thank you, Johnny. Truly. Johnny's chest swelled with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a charity. It was the beginning of something bigger, a movement that would leave a mark far beyond their imaginations. Harold Gray Ripple Effect. The success of the Harold Gray Foundation sent ripples far beyond what Johnny Depp or the Gray family could have anticipated. What began as a fleeting moment of kindness in a grocery store parking lot had grown into a movement reshaping the creative therapy landscape. Inspired by Eleanor's vision and Johnny's commitment, other organizations began to recognize the potential of art therapy as a tool for healing and connection. The foundation's impact was immediate. Communities that had long been ignored by traditional outreach programs now had access to vibrant, accessible art spaces and workshops. Testimonials poured in. Parents sharing how art therapy had helped their children navigate trauma, veterans finding peace through painting, and elderly participants discovering a renewed sense of purpose through sculpture and music. For Johnny, the experience reinforced lessons he'd learned from his early days in Hollywood. The greatest rewards often come from lifting others up. In interviews, he often reflected on that sunny afternoon with Eleanor as the spark that reignited his own sense of purpose. It's not about fame or wealth, he would say, but about the legacy you leave in the lives you touch. Eleanor, too, found a renewed sense of vitality. Watching her late husband's dream come to life gave her strength, and she became a fierce advocate for the foundation. At public events, she spoke passionately about how art therapy had not only brought healing to others, but had also rebuilt her family's connection to the community. Johnny's involvement became personal in ways he hadn't anticipated. He often visited workshops, sitting with participants as they painted or crafted. The Harold Gray Initiative, the Foundation's flagship program offering free workshops to underserved communities, became his pride and joy. He brought in friends from the industry, musicians, actors, and directors, to volunteer their time, further spreading the Foundation's influence. The media couldn't get enough of the story, a Hollywood superstar using his fame and resources to transform lives, all sparked by a single act of kindness. Yet for Johnny, the spotlight was never the goal. Every time he looked at Eleanor and Anna's smiles, he felt a deeper satisfaction, knowing they were honoring Harold Gray's legacy in a way that truly mattered. But this was only the beginning. At a gala celebrating the Foundation's first anniversary, Anna approached Johnny with an idea. "What if we expanded the Foundation's mission?" she asked, her voice brimming with excitement. "We could partner with schools, hospitals, and shelters across the country, creating satellite programs for those who can't come to us." Johnny's eyes lit up. The thought of reaching even more people, spreading creativity, and healing to places that needed it most, filled him with hope. That night, as he stood on the gala stage, addressing a crowd of supporters and beneficiaries, Johnny reflected on how one small decision had changed the course of his life. "Kindness has a ripple effect," he said. "It starts with a single moment and grows into something far greater than we can imagine. Let's keep those ripples going." Have you ever experienced how a small act of kindness can transform lives? Share your story below, and let's keep the conversation alive. Who knows, your story might be the start of something extraordinary.